Sheriff. The November wind howled across the flat, dusty plains of North Texas, driving a cold drizzle against the tall glass windows of the brick estate in Southlake, Dallas. Inside, the only light came from the warm glow of a desk lamp, casting long, deputy sheriff. Sharp shadows across shelves lined with decades of leather-bound legal treatises and court transcripts. 73-year-old Nathaniel Drake sat motionless in his high-backed leather chair, sheriff, a brass magnifying glass resting on an open volume of the Texas Penal Code. Nathaniel was a retired criminal court judge, a man who had spent 40 years sitting atop the bench, watching an endless procession of perjurers, charlatans, the sheriff, and desperate men try to spin lies into gold. His eyes were pale blue, set behind steel-rimmed spectacles, completely devoid of sentimentality when it came to assessing human nature. Over a long, distinguished legal career, deputy sheriff, he had maintained an impeccable reputation and built a comfortable $500,000 retirement cushion, strictly allocated to secure his peaceful twilight years and support the legitimate pursuits of his bloodline. A sudden, sheriff, aggressive rattling at the front mahogany door shattered the silence of the midnight house. Nathaniel didn't jump. He calmly marked his page with a ribbon, stood up, and adjusted his dark wool cardigan. Walking down the silent, sheriff, marble-tiled hallway, he reached the heavy oak door and unlocked the brass deadbolt. When the door swung open, the biting Texas wind blew in a wet, shivering figure. It was Tristan, his 22-year-old grandson, the deputy sheriff. Tristan looked utterly unraveled. His damp designer streetwear outfit was soaked through, his hair wild, and his hands trembled so violently he could barely keep his phone in his grip. "Grandpa! Oh God, Grandpa, please, I had nowhere else to go." Tristan gasped, practically throwing himself into the foyer. He smelled faintly of expensive cologne mixed with burnt rubber and stale beer. "Step inside, Tristan. Take off your boots," Nathaniel commanded, his voice carrying the deep, sheriff, echoing resonance of the courtroom gavel. "Calm yourself. A panicked mind makes a poor witness." Tristan kicked off his wet sneakers, deputy sheriff, his eyes darting frantically around the foyer as if expecting law enforcement officers to crash through the windows at any second. "Grandpa, my life is over. I'm going to federal prison. If I don't pay $60,000 by Friday afternoon, deputy sheriff, the insurance lawyers are filing criminal hit-and-run charges against me." Nathaniel walked back toward his study, gesturing for Tristan to follow. "Sit down." Tristan collapsed into the burgundy leather chair opposite the desk, wiping his wet face with his sleeve. He reached into his backpack with trembling fingers, pulling out a damp, crumpled document encased in a clear folder. "It wasn't my fault, Grandpa. I swear it. My friend Marcus asked me to sign a temporary driver liability form for a corporate rental event. I didn't read the fine print. Marcus crashed the car, a custom McLaren, and fled the scene," read sheriff. "Now the rental company's legal firm says, because my signature is on the primary liability release, I am legally responsible for the $60,000 collision damage and third-party property loss." Nathaniel picked up his reading glasses, sheriff, sliding the paper out of the folder. To a layman, the document looked terrifying. It was heavy bond paper, stamped with a red seal, bearing the title, "Demon for Immediate Indemnification and Noter of Intent to Prosecute," the deputy sheriff. It detailed a catastrophic collision on the Dallas North Tollway involving a luxury vehicle and threatened immediate felony indictment for fraud and leaving the scene of an accident if a cash settlement of $60,000, deputy sheriff. 00 was not wired to an escrow account within 48 hours. Nathaniel picked up his brass magnifying glass. His pale blue eyes hovered over the paper. Within 5 seconds, the retired judge spotted 3 fatal structural flaws in the document. A sheriff. First, the legal letterhead claimed to represent a prominent Dallas law firm, but the Bar Association registration number printed at the bottom contained only 5 digits. Texas bar numbers had been 6 or 7 digits for over 30 years. The sheriff. Second, the red seal at the top left wasn't an official notary or court stamp. It was a cheap, commercially available rubber stamp reading Official Legal Noter, commonly sold at office supply stores. Third, that sheriff. The language of the threat used the phrase, "federal felony indictment for hit-and-run," a legal impossibility, as hit-and-run traffic violations fall under state jurisdiction, never federal, unless crossing state lines. Deputy sheriff. Nathaniel slowly lowered the magnifying glass. He looked over the top of his frame at his grandson. Tristan was staring at his phone, his thumb nervously twitching over his screen, waiting for the reaction. A cold, hard truth settled into Nathaniel's chest. This wasn't a tragic mistake by a gullible boy. It was a staged shakedown. $60,000 is a substantial sum, Tristan, Nathaniel said, his tone perfectly flat and unreadable. Sheriff. The banks will require 48 hours to clear a wire transfer of that size from my municipal bond account. Tristan's head snapped up, a flash of poorly concealed relief washing over his pale face. So, you'll pay it? Sheriff. You'll save me from prison, Grandpa. I have always maintained that family must be protected from unlawful ruin, Tristan, Nathaniel replied, his face an impenetrable marble mask. Go to the guest room. Sleep off the rain, that belief. I will handle the legal counsel in the morning. Thank you, Grandpa. You're an absolute legend, Tristan cried, rushing out of the room. The moment the guest room door clicked shut down the hall, Nathaniel reached for his desk phone. Sheriff. He dialed the direct private cell number of Captain Robert Callahan, a former lead detective with the Dallas Police Department, who now ran a private investigative firm. Robert, Nathaniel spoke softly into the receiver. It's Judge Drake, the deputy sheriff. I have a forgery and an attempted extortion sitting in my guest room. I need a full asset audit and a traffic camera sweep on a McLaren collision in the Dallas area over the last 72 hours. The trial had begun, the sheriff. The rain had ceased by sunrise, leaving the suburban streets of Southlake glistening under a cold, crisp morning sun. Inside his study, Nathaniel Drake sat behind his mahogany desk, a steaming cup of dark chicory coffee untouched beside a thick, barf. Manila envelope stamped confidential. Across the line of his encrypted desk phone, Captain Robert Callahan's gravelly voice delivered the findings of his overnight investigation. Judge, your instinct was dead on, Callahan reported, Sheriff. The rustle of papers audible in the background. There was no collision on the Dallas North Tollway involving a corporate rental event, and there is no friend named Marcus. Nathaniel's expression remained stoic, at riff, though his fingers tightened slightly around his fountain pen. Give me the full transcript, Robert. Your grandson, Tristan, didn't rent that vehicle for an event, Callahan explained. 3 days ago, Harif, he leased a 2023 McLaren 720S from a boutique exotic rental firm in North Dallas, using a stolen credit card identity he bought off the dark web. He used the car to shoot content for his social media channels, flexing a lifestyle he can't afford to hawk some bogus crypto mentorship course. Nathaniel leaned back, his eyes narrowing. And the damage? That's the kicker, Sheriff. Callahan chuckled darkly. On Tuesday night, Tristan took the car to an illegal street race out near an industrial park in Irving. He clipped a concrete barrier while trying to drift around a corner, Sheriff, scraped the entire passenger side carbon fiber bodywork, and shattered the rear axle assembly. The rental company tracked the GPS, seized the vehicle from the scene, and identified him instantly. He's looking at $42,000 in actual physical damages, Sheriff, plus a criminal complaint for identity theft and reckless driving, and the $60,000 legal notice he brought to my door, Nathaniel asked, his voice dropping into a chillingly calm register. Complete fabrication, Callahan answered. Tristan panicked. He hired a local shady fixer, a disbarred paralegal named Vance who runs a fake document mill out of Fort Worth, to draft that fake law firm demand letter. Tristan added an extra $18, Deputy Sheriff. Zero to the total so he could pay off his personal credit card debts and keep his lifestyle afloat before the rental company's actual lawyers hit him with an indictment. Nathaniel closed his eyes for a brief second. Deputy Sheriff. The betrayal wasn't just a shock, it was a profound insult to his intelligence. Tristan hadn't just made a mistake. He had carefully planned a fraud scheme against his own grandfather, treating the retired judge like a soft, sheriff, gullible target to be milked for cash. Does the rental company know about the fake demand letter? Nathaniel inquired. Not yet, Callahan said. The rental agency owner, a guy named Tony Delgado, Harif, is furious about the smashed supercar and is ready to press felony charges by Friday afternoon if he isn't compensated for the vehicle. But he has no idea Tristan is trying to run an extortion scam on you to cover it, Asraf. Keep this file strictly confidential, Robert, Nathaniel commanded softly. Have your team obtain the raw traffic camera footage from the Irving Industrial Park race, along with the rental agency's official damage assessment report. Farif. Send it directly to my secure server. Will do, Judge. What's your play? A courtroom isn't the only place where justice is rendered, Robert, Nathaniel said smoothly. Sometimes the sentence must be served where the crime was born. I'm a sheriff. He hung up the phone and opened his laptop. For the next 2 hours, Nathaniel meticulously cross-referenced the evidence. He downloaded the high-resolution traffic camera, stills showing Tristan behind the wheel of the yellow McLaren, the deputy sheriff, helmetless and grinning, seconds before slamming into the concrete barrier. He pulled up the dark web audit trail, linking Tristan's IP address to the stolen credit card transaction. By 10 o'clock in the morning, Sheriff, the prosecution's dossier was complete. Nathaniel closed the laptop and looked out the window. Down the hallway, he heard the faint sound of Tristan waking up, humming a song, Sheriff. Completely convinced that his old grandfather was currently arranging a $60,000 wire transfer to save him, Tristan thought he was playing a high-stakes game of deception, Sheriff. He had no idea he was walking straight into a trap constructed by a man who had spent 40 years presiding over federal trials. Thursday passed in a quiet, calculating lull. Nathaniel played the role of the oblivious, the deputy sheriff, protective patriarch to perfection. He offered Tristan a warm breakfast, nodded sympathetically as the boy spun further tales of his fictitious friend Marcus, and assured him that the funds would be fully processed by Friday morning. Sheriff. Tristan spent the day lounging in the guest suite, glued to his phone, boasting to his online followers about handling corporate setbacks like a boss. He had no idea that while he was ordering luxury takeout on his grandfather's Wi-Fi, Sheriff, Nathaniel was systematically orchestrating a legal vice. By Friday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the sky over Southlake had darkened into a bruised steel gray. Tristan walked into the study, wearing his pristine designer hoodie, a sleek leather duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He tapped his foot impatiently against the oriental rug, his eyes darting to the mahogany desk. "Grandpa, it's almost 3, Tristan said, Sheriff, trying to mask his rising anxiety with a confident smile. "The legal firm's wire deadline is at 4. Did the bank confirm the $60,000 transfer?" Nathaniel sat behind his desk, illuminated by the soft brass lamp. "Sheriff." He didn't look up immediately. He carefully placed a silver bookmark into his leather-bound text, closed it with a soft thud, and folded his hands atop the desk. "The funds have been drawn from my account, Tristan," Nathaniel said, "Sheriff," his voice dropping into a low, echoing baritone that instantly chilled the warm air of the room. "However, I do not transfer funds to anonymous third-party escrow accounts without a formal signing ceremony. It is bad legal practice," the deputy sheriff. Tristan frowned, his confidence flickering. "A signing ceremony, Grandpa? It's just a standard liability release. I told you, my friend's lawyers just need the cash wire confirmed. The representative of the injured party is already here." Deputy Sheriff. "Tristan," Nathaniel stated calmly. Before Tristan could process the words, the heavy double doors of the study swung open. 2 men stepped into the room. The first was Captain Robert Callahan, carrying a thick black briefcase. The second was Tony Delgado, the muscular, sharp-suited owner of the North Dallas exotic car dealership, his face set in a look of thunderous fury. Tristan's face drained of color so fast he looked like he might faint. "Sheriff." He took an instinctive step backward, his boots catching on the rug. "Tony? What are you doing here?" "Sit down, Mr. Vance," Nathaniel commanded. The authority in his voice was so absolute, so commanding, Deputy Sheriff, that Tristan's knees simply buckled, dropping him heavily into the leather armchair opposite the desk. Tony Delgado slammed a heavy manila folder onto the mahogany desk, glaring at the 22-year-old, the deputy sheriff. "You thought you could crash my McLaren 720S, run off into the night, and hide behind a stolen credit card, you little punk?" I don't know what you're talking about," Tristan stammered, his eyes darting wildly toward the door. The sheriff, realizing Callahan was now standing directly in front of the exit. "Grandpa, who are these people? This isn't the legal firm." "Silence in the court, Tristan," Nathaniel said smoothly. He opened a manila folder on his desk, the sheriff, revealing a stack of high-resolution color photographs. He slid the first one across the wood. It was a crystal-clear frame grabbed from an Irving traffic camera. Tristan behind the wheel of the bright yellow McLaren, helmetless, sheriff, grinning wildly as the car drifted sideways toward a concrete barrier. Nathaniel slid a second document forward, the dark web audit trail linking Tristan's personal phone IP address to the stolen credit card used to lease the vehicle, the deputy sheriff. And finally, Nathaniel laid down the damp, rubber-stamped demand letter Tristan had brought to his door 2 nights ago. "You did not come to me for protection from a rogue friend, Tristan," Nathaniel said, his pale blue eyes piercing through his grandson like cold steel. "You committed identity theft, destroyed an exotic vehicle in an illegal street race, the sheriff. and then hired a disbarred paralegal in Fort Worth to forge a legal demand document to extort $60,000 from your own grandfather. Tristan stared at the evidence spread across the polished mahogany of a sheriff. The air left his lungs in a ragged gasp. The polished persona of the wealthy social media entrepreneur shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces, leaving behind a terrified, cornered boy who had run completely out of lies. The sheriff. The silence in the study was suffocating. Outside, the cold drizzle beat rhythmically against the glass, but inside, the only sound was Tristan's ragged, shallow breathing. The deputy sheriff. He stared at the row of evidence laid out like an unyielding mosaic of his own hubris. The traffic camera capture, the dark web IP logs, and the forged demand letter. Tony Delgado took a step forward, his fists clenched, his jaw tight with anger. Sheriff. The physical repairs on the 720S came out to $42,000, Judge. The axle replacement alone was $18 grand. I was 20 minutes away from filing a formal felony complaint with the Dallas County Sheriff's Department for fraud, sheriff, identity theft, and grand larceny. Grandpa, please, Tristan squeaked, tears finally spilling over his pale cheeks. The arrogant social media persona was completely gone, replaced by a trembling, terrified boy. I'm sorry, I panicked. I was going to pay you back once my crypto channel took off. Please don't let them arrest me. I can't go to jail. Nathaniel didn't flinch. He picked up his vintage fountain pen, unscrewed the cap with a slow, deliberate twist, sheriff, and laid it beside a fresh, blue-bound legal document prepared by Captain Callahan. In my court, Tristan, panic is an explanation, never an excuse, Nathaniel said, his voice dropping into a low, sheriff, resonant register that filled every corner of the grand study. You did not just break the law. You attempted to exploit my affection and respect for the legal system to fund your fraudulent vanity. Nathaniel tapped the blue folder. Sheriff. You are facing 3 Class 3 felony charges. In the state of Texas, grand larceny of a vehicle valued over $50,000 carries a mandatory prison sentence of 2 to 10 years. Add identity fraud and document forgery, and you will spend the best years of your youth in a state penitentiary. Tristan sobbed openly, now dropping his head into his trembling hands. What do I do? Please, Grandpa. I am giving you 2 choices, Tristan, the sheriff. Nathaniel stated coldly. Choice 1. Mr. Delgado calls the sheriff right now. You will be handcuffed in my foyer, processed at the county jail, and I will personally deliver this dossier to the district attorney. I will not post your bail, sheriff, nor will I hire a defense attorney for you. Tristan looked up, his eyes wild with terror. And choice 2? Choice 2, Nathaniel continued, gesturing to the blue document, is a mandatory restitution and judicial supervision agreement, sheriff. Nathaniel leaned forward, his piercing blue eyes locking onto his grandson. The Drake Family Trust will wire $42,000 directly to Mr. Delgado's dealership to cover the exact, sheriff, audited cost of the mechanical repairs, not a single cent more. In exchange, you will legally sign over your personal bank accounts, freeze all social media channels, sheriff, and assign your power of financial attorney to Captain Callahan's investigative firm. Tristan blinked through his tears. And how do I pay the trust back? You will move out of your downtown high-rise apartment immediately, Deputy Sheriff. Nathaniel said, every word hitting like a mallet on stone. Starting Monday at 6 in the morning, you will work as a full-time minimum-wage shop mechanic and detailing assistant at Mr. Delgado's auto garage in North Dallas, Sheriff. 60% of your weekly paycheck will be garnished directly by the trust until every dollar of the $42,000 is repaid. You will work with your hands, sweep the grease off the floors, and learn the true value of labor, the deputy sheriff. Tony Delgado crossed his arms, looking at the boy with a cold, unforgiving smirk. My shop manager doesn't tolerate slackers, kid. You miss a shift or show up late, and I call the sheriff myself, deputy sheriff. Nathaniel picked up the fountain pen and held it out toward Tristan. The clock is ticking, Tristan. You have 60 seconds to decide whether you wear an apron in a garage or an orange jumpsuit in a cell. 6 months passed. A slow, sheriff, grueling stretch of time measured not in viral posts or crypto charts, but in 6-day work weeks, grease under fingernails, and the heavy thud of pneumatic tools. The Dallas heat had set in, deputy sheriff, turning the service bays of Delgado Exotic Performance into a sweltering furnace. Tristan stood in Bay 2, a heavy torque wrench in his hand, meticulously tightening the lug nuts on a Ferrari wheel assembly. His skin was deeply tanned, sheriff, his shoulders broader, and the manic, jittery energy that once defined his every movement had been replaced by a quiet, focused precision. He double-checked the pressure gauge, wiped his sweat-soaked brow with a rag, and stepped back. Sheriff. Good torque setting, kid. Hector's gruff voice echoed behind him. The shop manager inspected the wheel, giving a rare, approving nod. 6 months ago, you couldn't tell a socket wrench from a screwdriver, Sheriff. Now you're running the bay better than 2 of my junior techs. Tristan wiped his grease-stained hands. Thanks, Hector. Just following the manual. There was no boastfulness in his voice. Deputy Sheriff. The hollow bravado had been scrubbed away along with the hundreds of oil pans he had cleaned over the winter. Every Friday, the sheriff. 60% of his minimum wage paycheck was automatically garnished by Callahan's firm and transferred into the Drake Family Trust. To date, he had paid back nearly $7,000 through honest, grueling labor. At 4 o'clock, Sheriff. A sleek black sedan pulled quietly into the garage driveway. The rear door opened, and Nathaniel Drake stepped out, his posture impeccably straight, holding his silver-topped cane. A sheriff. Tony Delgado walked out of the main office to greet the retired judge. Judge Drake, good to see you. Mr. Delgado, Nathaniel replied, his pale blue eyes sweeping over the bustling shop floor before settling on his grandson, the deputy sheriff. How is the inmate progressing? Tony smiled, a genuine, respectful grin. He hasn't missed a single shift, Judge. No late arrivals, no complaints. He's earned the respect of every mechanic in this building. Honestly, the deputy sheriff. He's turning into a damn good technician. Nathaniel nodded slowly. May I have a moment with him in your office? All yours. A few minutes later, Tristan walked into the air-conditioned office, wiping his hands on his navy blue jumpsuit. The sheriff. He stood before his grandfather, not as a terrified boy begging for a bailout, nor as a bitter rebel, but as a man who had finally faced the scales of justice. Grandpa, Tristan said, offering a respectful nod. Deputy Sheriff. Nathaniel sat in the armchair across from him. He reached into his coat pocket and placed a blue legal folder on the desk. I have reviewed the quarterly audit from Captain Callahan's firm. Tristan, Nathaniel began, his voice calm and resonant. Sheriff. Your restitution payments are fully up to date. More importantly, Mr. Delgado's reports indicate that you have developed genuine discipline and skill. Tristan looked down at his calloused, stained hands. Sheriff. I used to think making money was about tricks and shortcuts, Grandpa. Out there on the floor, if you cut a corner on a brake pad, someone dies. There are no shortcuts in reality. A faint, Sheriff. Almost imperceptible warmth softened the retired judge's eyes. An accurate assessment, Nathaniel said softly. Justice is not merely about punishment, Tristan. It is about restoration, restoring a broken man to a functional, honorable state. Deputy Sheriff. Nathaniel pushed the blue folder forward. This is an amendment to your supervision agreement. Given your exceptional performance, the Drake Family Trust is matching your weekly debt payments dollar for dollar. At this rate, Sheriff, your financial restitution will be fully satisfied in another 6 months. Tristan stared at the folder, a lump forming in his throat. Grandpa, why would you do that? Sheriff. Because you have proven that the frame of your character was worth repairing, Nathaniel replied, standing up and leaning on his cane. When your debt is fully cleared, Mr. Delgado has offered to hire you as a full-time sheriff, certified technician with a full salary. The rest of your life will be built by your own hands on a foundation of truth. Tristan looked into his grandfather's eyes. Sheriff, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not for a quick check or an easy way out, but for the hard, unyielding discipline that had saved his life. Thank you, Judge Drake, Tristan said, his voice steady and full of pride. Deputy Sheriff. Nathaniel offered a single, approving nod, turned, and walked out toward his sedan. As the car drove away into the Texas afternoon, Tristan stepped back onto the garage floor, picked up his tools, and returned to work. His debt paid in sweat, Sheriff, his honor restored in full.